Hello everyone and welcome back to another video from the World Senior Team Chess Championship. I hope you've enjoyed this series. This will be my last video from the tournament, but let us know if you've enjoyed these learning experiences, Sabina's favorite moments from big tournaments, and then we will consider creating more of these videos. I just wanted to let you all know that Team USA has won the tournament. Congratulations to the entire team. Amazing performance. They have not started the best, but you know what they say. It doesn't matter how you start. It matters how you finish the tournament. You should never give up. You should always try to find a way to come back, and especially as a team, it's a great thing if you can support each other and make sure you try your best to come back. And that's exactly what they did. In round 4, they drew against Slovakia. So at the time they were in the middle of the standings, but then won against the Czech Republic, won 3.5 to half, a huge matchup against Kazakhstan, drew with Italy. And that was kind of an important match because Italy was, following them in the standings. Then 2.5 to 1.5 against England, and the final matchup against Germany, 2.5 to 1.5 to win the entire competition. And Team USA has won this tournament 3 times in a row. So that's quite amazing, very exciting. And I just want, to send my congratulations. Also, the ladies team has finished in 3rd in the section. So bringing home both a gold and a bronze medal. In addition, there was an amazing result on board 3 by Grandmaster Shabalov. And I do have a couple of games of his or moments that I want to show. But without further ado, we got a lot of material to cover, so let's get into it. For the first position that I have here, it's a game between Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov and Pavel Kotsur. This happened in that huge matchup that happened in round 6, where US team won 3.5 to half. And in this position, you notice that white has a rook and 2 pawns for 2 minor pieces. Definitely seems more comfortable for white, but black has a few ideas that could be unpleasant. Maybe this queen coming into g3, these knights moving around, keeping white passive to defend the g2 square. So it's not so easy to envision a progress, but of course there is one. When you have pawns, when you have extra pawns, you need to look for ways to create a passed pawn and push them forward by supporting them, of course, as well. So in this position, Gregory played the move d5, a very nice start to his, to support a c5, and then d6. But there's a small problem, you see, with the queen in g5 and the knight in f4. There's pressure in d5, so you don't actually threaten to go c5. You might need to move the rook to d4 to try to support it, but in that case, maybe you'll allow some activity with a knight. So it is a bit tricky, but this was the moment where his opponent started to go wrong. He felt probably that he has to stop d6, maybe forgetting the pressure there. And let's see how this position was improved. You always have to take advantage of the small mistakes that your opponent makes, but that's how winning is done. Queen to f6 and now c5. Very nice, supporting. You don't have a pressure anymore. We're pushing the pawn forward. The trade happened, and now queen back to g5. But it wouldn't have been nicer to just go queen g3 check maybe and then go back to g5 and just wait? Probably it would have. So now after this move, d6, of course, white is just following, taking advantage of the mistake that black played, and now follows through with the win. d6. We capture everything. Now queen g3 check, but it comes a bit too late because these knights, they won't be able to stop the pawn. They're perfectly placed to protect each other, but not for that pawn, and this is protected. Black has attempted a small sacrifice here with knight takes h3, but white didn't even care about it and continued his play with d7. Capturing here would have been, of course, a mistake because now we got queen takes f3 check, and after queen to g2, queen d1 check. We can go here, but black captures that pawn with the pawns gone. this is going to be quite easy, I think, for black to hold. So that's why, of course, we do not touch the knight. Of course, there's a small little threat here with knight f2, but please make sure it's a serious threat. Don't panic, calculate, and you will get your win. That's what Grandmaster Kaidanov did. He pushed d7, knight f2 check, and here, you know, just to finish the game with a beautiful touch, queen takes f2. Of course, that's the only move of, also, by the way, if you go king g1, then oopsie daisies, h3, a very nice way to win for black, because now we're threatening g2. This check was not meant to capture the rook, but rather close the action of the queen to g2. So now after h3, if you capture the knight, what do we do? h2 check. If you go to f1 to keep your queen protected, there's going to be a second queen coming right up. If not, if you go king h1, black is going to be able to capture your queen, and you do not have time to promote because we're threatening a mate. And if you capture this pawn, of course, black should be able in various ways to stop the d-pawn and win the game. So we're not going to fall for that. Grandmaster Kaidanov did not fall for it. He finished off the game with a beautiful queen sack, queen takes, and now queen once again, but now without the help of the knight. H3 does not help create any issues, because queen g5, this is protected, and this is a bit different than the previous position where maybe a3 pawn would have fallen too. So white is on his way to win. Black played queen g3, and after queen d7, which definitely stops now h3. No more ideas for black to continue attacking, so black resigned. All right, let's move on to another position that I have prepared for you right here by the man of the team, let's put it that way, Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov, because, you know, he won the gold medal on his board number 3. Definitely scored really well. And for those of you who don't know him, he's a great attacking player. And of course, I chose a gorgeous finish here. It's black to move. Can you pause the video? Or maybe you can find it instantaneously. Black to move and win. Well, the beautiful move here is knight takes h3. Check. You have all the pieces ready for the attack. We don't need to do anything. When you see so many pieces on one side of the board, there's gotta be something going. So we start with knight takes h3 check, pawn takes, and now rook takes h3 as well. You know what? Let's just give up everything. If you recapture, which is what happened in the game, queen takes, we sacrifice everything. We're down so much material. But what is more important than material? King safety. All right, and here white's king is not very safe, while black's king is. Maybe it doesn't look like it is, but no pieces of white's can really reach it. You can sacrifice a couple of pieces, but that's about it. That mate is inevitable, and this was the way that the game finished. Going on to another position that I had for you guys. It's actually a more positional position, again, from that same round. That was a huge turnaround of events, in my opinion, for Team USA. And here we have a position that seems quite balanced. It's not really, because white has, you know, the bishop, but and of course is also up a pawn, but it's close, right? So you may say, okay, there's no real way for white to improve here. h4 was just played because black was putting pressure on the h-file. So this is the way that you stop an attack. Don't be alarmed that your opponent takes en passant, because this pawn is going to be the shield that keeps white's king safe. So what Grandmaster Novikov did in this position, he played the move bishop f3. So he left the pawn, he gave up his extra pawn, he gave it up, but like I said, this is going to be the shield that keeps the position safe. And now you got to figure out a way to improve. This knight could need a bit of improvement. He decided to put it in f4, which kind of, you know, keeps potential sacrifices alive, threatens some knight h5, keeps pressure on h3. All good. h2, no big deal. Like I said, this is the shield. Do not panic. And from here on, there are a couple more moves that were played that might look to you as a back and forth in a way. But the idea is with white, you need to figure out a way to improve the position, to open it up, because your rooks, you need to have them do something. So what Grandmaster Novikov did here, maybe the engine didn't like it the best, but I think it's kind of a nice approach. He put the knight to c5, so he decided to force a trade, but that opened up the fourth rank for his rooks to get active. So I did like actually this idea. Rook e8, and now he first gave this check, king g8 and rook d1. Right now this bishop looks a bit restricted, but if at some point we'll get an e4 in and trade these two pawns, the bishop will be quite active. In addition, of course, now after rook d1, the rook will come in on fourth rank. And looking at all of these pieces, the knight in a7 is not doing much, and black doesn't quite have a square for it and is far from black's king. So, you know, we're trying to find a way to improve. Very nice, very nicely done by white. Here, knight c8, rook d4, and here black played the move knight to e7. Now, this is a mistake because it blocks the action of the rook, so it makes white's life much easier in this position. I think by now you guys can guess what the move was that white played here. It's exactly following the plan. If this move wouldn't have been played, you need a bit of preparation. Maybe you can move the rook to e2 at some point in order to go e4, or maybe you'll decide to just sack the pawn and activate on the d file. But after knight e7, e4, and check out the ending of this game. Rook c1. It's a nice move because you're covering the back rank just in case some file gets opened or some diagonal. You don't want the queen to enter, and you know there's a pawn in h2 that can get promoted. And black made a huge mistake here playing f5, probably feeling that, you know, he didn't want to, of course, capture here, because then rook to d6, losing material. So he wasn't quite sure how he can deal with the pressure, and he felt maybe at least by playing f5 he would be able to somehow you know, just at least open up the file for himself. But what did white do? Capturing d5, knight takes, and here, can you guys find a way for white to improve the position further? The move is queen d2. Why is this such a good move? Well, you're looking towards g5, but you're also putting pressure in the center, so it's actually not very easy for black to come up with a move. This knight cannot really get out of there, because then there'll be rook d6, but if you don't move it, we might capture it. Black played the move rook h7, and check this out, white to move and win. Cute little tactic that I allowed for the end. The move is rook takes d5. Right? Because like I said, if you're not going to move the knight, it's going to be captured. And it was indeed not with the bishop as you possibly could have thought, but with the rook. And now, okay, you can already capture because bishop takes d5 and you lose the queen. So after this move, rook d4, black resigned here. We're also having ideas with rook d6, of course. In fact, I'm not sure, maybe he resigned earlier and the position was put wrong. Rook d6 seems even more natural to play. It could have been a transmission thing, but anyways, beautiful way to finish the game. All right, I got a couple more examples. This one was actually from round 5, also by Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov. He played with the black pieces. It's a position with opposite color bishops. We still have rooks. You may say, okay, Sabina, why are you giving us this position? It seems kind of balanced. Indeed, it is. But white here just made a mistake, and I don't want you to see what it was. I just wanted you to kind of evaluate this position and notice that even if it's opposite color bishops, it doesn't mean the position is a draw. Always take your time, understand, look for ideas, and specifically look for ways to create passed pawns. Here, of course, we want at some point to maybe play b4, right? Or somehow play rook b3, attack the pawn, and then sacrifice, something like that. As for white, they're a bit behind with their pawns. They haven't pushed yet, but they need to try to find a way to push it, maybe even here f5, or maybe bring the king to have some, threat in some situations. I believe even taking d3, keep the bishop to cover that, and you could consider sacrificing an exchange, but you're not in a rush to do so. Something like this, or playing f5 would have been moves for white to consider, but instead he played this move, rook d8. And why is this a big mistake? Well, because if you know what your idea is, then you're immediately going to think for a way to make it work, right? So I did mention we wanted at some point to get this pawn pushed, but with the rook in d4, the bishop was protected. Now, no, the move is not b4 if you're thinking about it, but rather rook b3 first, right? So we're putting pressure on this pawn, and when white protected it with bishop b4, by the way, this move is possible, but it's going to lead to rook c3, and you're still going to lose something very fast. So after bishop b4 here, rook takes b4, pawn takes, and now, bam, beautiful move. This is the move that I love. Backwards move, you're not thinking about it, always thinking forward. How do we push the pawns? Well, we simply don't push them. We just ask white a question. Where do you move the rook? And the thing is, you notice, if you allow d2, then your king cannot really stop the pawn. So if white would have moved the rook on the only available square on the file, now we would push a3, and this rook now cannot reach the a pawn. So in the game, rook h8 was played, but now d2, still threatening promotion. You have to go back to stop it, and now bishop b3, controlling the square, winning the rook, and winning the endgame. So beautiful finish, I think, here by Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov. Going on to the next one, I have another position by Grandmaster Igor Novikov. He was playing against Grandmaster Mark Hebden from England. So this was from round 8, and it was an important game. And if you look at the position, you may say, well, what is there? It doesn't seem like it's easy for black to convert this, but we got a little bit of advantage. We have a little bit of advantage. We have this far away past pawn. White has these double pawns, and despite having so many pawns on the light square, I feel that this bishop is not as bad. It doesn't look like it's worse than this one. So in this position, you just need to think of a way to improve. Okay, there's no breakthroughs, no ways for you to win material, but how are you going to break through if I just sit? You need to find a way to improve your position. So what's the piece that needs improvement? The king in g7. Everything else looks just fine. Where can we bring that king? And you always should look at the pawn structure and see if there are any holes in the position, anything you can improve. And here there are. Look at the position on the king side. We can have some improvement idea by bringing the king here. I know it sounds a bit suspicious. How? Why? Aren't you going to get mated? No, you are not. And let's see how this game was played. I just wanted to show you this position to see the easiness with which, in my opinion, black has been able to improve. White, is just sitting, like I mentioned. It's very hard to come up with ways to stop this because the bishops will get traded and the king just enters. There's no way to really stop it. And if you put the engine, it will tell you some way potentially, but it's really not as easy. Now, this was a gorgeous idea because black is saying, take my knight. I'd rather keep my bishop, right? That's why rook a5, it kind of forces white to give up. And maybe they didn't want to give up the bishop, at least let black capture so that then this pawn would maybe recapture and go c4. But now, after this move, rook takes c4. Why rook and not bishop? Well, first of all, we do not want to allow that rook to have any kind of activity. Second of all, we want to keep the pressure on c3, so the knight is bound to stay there. We're going to move the rook away whenever we feel like it. It's a knight outpost. We want the rook there. And now starts the king march. Let's go. King d2 to free up the knight. Rook back to c7. It's always nice to keep rooks on the opposite color than your bishop. if you only have one bishop left, and check it out. I just love this, and I had to show it to you guys because I don't know. I think it's a really cute moment, and there's nothing that you can do. White lost that pawn. The first grabbed the knight, and now first pawn fell, second pawn fell, and the game proceeded for just a bit longer, but there's no mate. Do not panic. Look at that. I mean, I just loved it because the king went all the way to h2, right? It had this path. King here, 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 here. Oh, my arrows disappeared. Sad. I really need to emphasize on this because I thought it was just so nice. Sorry, it did not go to g3. My bad. It went actually to h3, right? h2, g3, and back, and no cause for alarm. We're back home, nothing happened. We grabbed some pawns on the way, and now black is going to be able to win with their extra pawns. The d pawns are doubled, are not going to give white sufficient counterplay, and finally in this position, white resigned. And last but not least, I have a final example. I hope you guys have enjoyed everything so far. This is the final example, and I think the most important to this entire turnaround for Team USA to win gold in this tournament. And I chose a game. There were 2 wins, by the way, in that match, but I chose as my favorite moment the game between Grandmaster Jan Elvest and Grandmaster Klaus Bischoff. So in this game, basically, it was a Khan Sicilian. White is getting ready to build up an attack. Black just played g6, and we're thinking of a way to try to play for a win. We're playing with the white pieces. We're playing for the team. It's important. What do we do? So I always like these types of positions because it clearly shows the extra superiority in a way, if you want, that you see with the more advanced pawn on e5 versus one in e6, because it does restrict the opponent from being able to come and defend. So what happened here? Well, White started with looking at which piece needs improvement, and I think he did want to improve the position of the rook, but doubling up on the f-file probably is not going to do that much, so how about trying to get on the h-file? But in order to do so, this is a very unpleasant bishop, so we start by trading it, bishop f3. Black doesn't quite have a say in whether they can stop that trade, whether they want to take in f3 or they want to allow white to take. It's gonna happen anyways, so they decided to take. Queen takes, and now I think they panicked a little bit that the king would require some defense. If I'm not mistaken, I've seen some games where white actually goes for g4, h4, h5, something like that. So just in order to avoid everything, black played h5. Now knight e4. So I like this move because, okay, in a way it sets up a trap, of course. Here, if you take, I think the idea was to play knight d6. Just activate the knight to d6, and if you capture it with a bishop or something, we take back, and at least we opened up the diagonal for a potential attack. Now, in hindsight, maybe that would have been a slightly better decision for black. Instead, he ended up playing the move queen c6. I think he was just thinking that he wanted the queens to be traded. With the queen in c6 keeping pressure on the knight in e4, this knight wasn't going to get to d6, the square is controlled, the queens can get traded. But here, white can slowly improve. First, bishop e3, knight g7, and now from here, the beautiful improvement starts. First of all, what is black's defender? The knight in g7. How do we get rid of it? Bishop h6, king h7. Now, question for everyone. Do you take the knight or do you protect the bishop? Which one do you choose? Well, if you're not ready for a follow-up, you might not want to capture that knight. That knight is not doing so well, and right now it cannot move just yet because it's pinned, and the rook cannot move because f7 will be hanging. So white decided to play the move queen f4, keep the bishop protected, and wait for a way to improve. And surprisingly to me, I think black felt there's going to be some issues here with some bishop g5 maybe, because you can try to trade the bishop, infiltrate with the knight, maybe knight f6 because now there's no more pin. So he decided to play the move h4, but this was the mistake that caused black losing the game and team Germany, losing the match. What do you play in this position with the white pieces? The answer is bishop g5. Bishop g5, we are simply trading one of the defenders, and black just created a weakness by making this choice. Always be mindful with the pawn pushes specifically around your pawn. Please do so. So after this move, knight h5 was played, queen takes h4. Black decided to trade the bishop because what else are you going to do? There's going to be ideas with knight f6, knight g3. So he traded, knight takes, king g7, and he may have thought he's safe because with the queen in c6, we're also pinning the pawn in g2. You cannot go g4. What else are you going to do? But white started with a nice prophylactic idea. c3, which I think could have been maybe played a bit earlier to make sure the pawn could never be captured. So nice prophylaxis. Queen c4, trade. Shall we trade? If you find a way to win material, you shall. If not, keep your queens on the board. Grandmaster Jan Edelweiss decided to trade queens because he saw a nice way to convert the endgame resulting. And what is the best way? What's the best thing that you want to do when you got rooks? Activate them in the opponent's territory, specifically on the 7th rank. Check this out. Rook d7. We got the rook on the best possible location, pressuring f7, pressuring b7, threatening knight takes e6, and after king g8 to defend to the e6 pawn, f7 has fallen, and with that the game 2, because we're threatening knight h6, capturing the rook, game over. And b7 is hanging, everything is kind of hanging. For example, if you go rook f4 in this position or something, we can definitely just trade the rook, and we're gonna we can play g3 first if we want, or we can just give this check and then g3. Either one is good enough to win the game. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and these games, these positions. It was a pleasure creating this series, and please let us know in the comments whether you want to see more of these other kind of series from important tournaments, and what can we do to improve. Don't forget to follow US Chess on all their social media platforms, and give us a thumbs up, and subscribe if you want to stay notified when more videos are being posted. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.